Thank you, Sam. That was awesome, very informative, and it really sets the stage for our first panel of the day, where we're going to be talking about the experience of building on Sonic. So we're going to have a nice smorgasbord, different kinds of projects building on Sonic. We're going to have Ali Raheman from Magpie Protocol, Adam from LNDFi, and Brayden Doig of Abyss Cards and Taste Foundation. So please give them a round of applause as we welcome our founders to the stage. Here they are. Oh, and Seg. I can't forget Seg's here. Also, God, I can't forget.
That's okay.
Seg.
You forgot me 3 times.
Have fun.
3.
Thanks for coming, everybody. So good to see you here for a second day. I think Sam's VM presentation was excellent. Hope you have a good understanding of the economic innovation that we've made with Sonic. I think for a little bit of a gear switch, we're going to be talking about building on Sonic from the builder's perspective and shifting away a little bit from the economy. So today we have Ali Raheman from Magpie, we have Adam from LND, and we have Freud from Abyss Cards and Taste Foundation. So basically, what we're going to the way we're going to structure this is we're going to ask each of them about their experience building on Sonic, and then we're going to ask them some specific questions about their protocols. So let's start with Ali. Why don't you introduce yourself and the protocol you've built?
I'm Ali. I'm the founder of Magpie Protocol. We're a liquidity aggregator. We're deployed on over 19 chains, and Sonic is one of them.
Nice.
I'm Adam. I'm co-founder of LND, and we are lending markets, lending and borrowing. And we're live on Sonic and Hyper EVM.
Nice. Freud?
I'm Freud. I represent the Taste Foundation. We build basically interactive AI solutions for IP brands. We did a proof of concept last month on Sonic, which went really well, which is Abyss Cards, which is the world's first one-of-one trading card game. It's all powered by interactive AI solutions. So that's what we do.
Nice. So you can see there's like a diversity of builders just on the panel, and from the creative domain, from the finance domain. So I think what I wanted to ask each of you, you're on a bunch of chains, some are exclusive to Sonic. I wanted to ask, what does Sonic's architecture specifically, how does it influence the scalability, speed of your application, or your decision to launch on it?
Well, one of the first things is speed. The user experience that you have in Sonic with Magpie, if you swap, it's just it's unparalleled with all of the EVMs that we're currently live on, and even non-EVMs that we've been working on in terms of deployment. So our strategy in general was to add support for as many chains as possible, and it was an easy choice to deploy on Sonic. VM was interesting at the time, but after seeing it in action, it's even more interesting and exciting for us. So yeah, we had to in fact make some changes on our protocol to account for the speed and the number of transactions, the throughput the chain has, which was an interesting endeavor. But yeah, the speed is insane.
So VM, you mentioned VM. So have you guys been recipients of VM yet?
Yeah.
And how has it been?
Pretty good. I mean, in general, you would not really receive anything for transactions being executed through an aggregator, but the sheer number of transactions that we do, it accounts for a pretty decent chunk of fee that we otherwise wouldn't have received and wouldn't have accounted for as a source of revenue.
Amazing. That's awesome. Perfect. Adam? I'll repeat the question. So how come you chose Sonic, and how does the architecture and speed impact your protocol?
Originally, we didn't have plans to launch on Sonic. However, when we looked at you guys' new, you guys' rebranding, that really attracted us, and then you guys, the help that you guys give builders and the communication, apart from just the tech, is better than any other chain that we've had personal experience from. Deployment was extremely easy. Testing was so easy. Our users are very, very happy. The technical architecture, the speed, everything was so smooth from the get-go.
Awesome. That's really, really good to hear. And then Freud, what
Yeah,
led
I
you
mean, similarly, like the experience obviously dealing with the team has been epic. Like just being able to reach out and get support on multiple levels. You know, with Abyss particularly, we were kind of talking to multiple different chains about, you know, trying to make decisions where to put this. But yeah, Sonic, the choice to deploy on Sonic, especially Abyss, was really important because everything we do is UX UI, right? We're creating like a creative experience for users. So. Furthermore, with what we're doing with Taste Foundation is we work with established IP, right? So Abyss is all of our own in-house ideas. We come up with the ideas. It's really, again, a proof of concept. But where the Taste Foundation is going is into Web 2 audiences. And, you know, there's levels of chain abstraction that we need to put on top of within the applications we create these experiences with. So it's a no-brainer to be going with Sonic because of not only the alignment with that abstracted future, but the speed that they provide allows us to kind of put, you know, stacks on top of that to then be able to kind of like reach finality almost instantly and be able to abstract the blockchain in the things that we need to do in order to like bring millions of users from Web 2 over to Sonic. So that's kind of our roadmap, and this is where we align with Sonic a lot. So it just seems natural.
Amazing. I'm going to ask you a couple more questions in a bit about, because you're in the creative sector, and I think it's interesting for people to hear from that perspective, because obviously blockchains are sort of finance native, and you don't see as many creative houses in the blockchain space. So I think it'll be interesting to explore that a little bit. But just before that, I wanted to ask, so you introduced your protocol briefly. What would you say each of your USPs, so I'll start with Ali. What would you say differentiates you from other players in the market? Because obviously there's a lot of protocols out there. What specifically would make somebody want to come to Magpie? And yeah.
Well, the number one thing is pricing. We more often than not provide better pricing as compared to some of the top aggregators in the space. Second is optionality. We have built our aggregator from the ground over the course of the last 3 years, and the optionality we offer, by that I mean being able to deposit into an LP pool or minting an LST or LRT. We natively support a lot of these interactions. We're actively add support for newer AMM logics, so like balance V3 hooks. I think not a lot of protocols support them. So you'll always continue to get better pricing at Magpie, and you'll just have the best optionality. So that's
nice. So what I hear is you're honing in on your customer base. You're not getting distracted in terms of what they need. You're not getting distracted with other things, and you're specifically optimizing for what your customer base is looking for and just doing it the best that you can.
Correct. Like pricing is key. Reliability is another thing because we do have a consumer app that people can use, but a huge fraction of our volume transactions come through integrators, builders who want to tap into liquidity of, I don't know, 15 other chains or deposit into a vault on Sonic. And so these integrations require reliability. So we've just been refining our core offering. There will be additional things because at the end of the day, we started this to improve overall user experience across multi-chain DeFi.
Makes
sense. Leveraging chain abstraction, things as such will be just like a natural progression of where we are.
So how do you get the best pricing relative to your competitors?
That's really the secret sauce, aggregation. That's why in the keynote I call it art of aggregation. Because every aggregation algorithm, it's just like a discovery algorithm that's a black box. 1inch does it differently, OpenOcean does it different, Odos does it different. And so it's just a product of my fellow co-founder's obsession with aggregation. But yeah, typically a discovery algorithm just finds the best route, take advantage of any short-lived market inefficiencies to give you the highest amount out.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like it's a bit of a cutthroat because the margins are pretty, because you're providing a service that users are trying to get the least price that they can get while also competing with other aggregators who are also trying to make some margin to cover their expenses and everything. So very kudos to you. It sounds like a tough business, but you guys are doing super well. So that's awesome. So Adam from L&D, if you can describe just some of your USPs, just how you sort of differentiate yourselves from other protocols in the market. I'm sure builders can get some insights.
Yeah, I mean the lending market in general, it's quite competitive. Whether you have your big projects like Euler, CLO, Arve. Our USP is going to be our isolated markets and our interest rate model, which we're improving on Arve's. So what we essentially want to give our users is the best interest rate. So borrow USDC at Sonic or whichever asset you want at the cheapest rate available. And also we will also create isolated markets, which is unique to asset itself. Like you have correlated assets, which we will give higher LTV and the higher LT percentage, and also launching on deploying on different chains, having P2P pools as well. That will be really good for everyone. We also have our airdrop coming up as well. So there's a lot of incentives for users to come and use LND.
Okay, so building a moat is important through these types of things like airdrops and community and that kind of thing. This is what I'm hearing as well. Because if you think about like some products on blockchains are sort of like commodities. So if you think about like Coke and Pepsi, how do they develop loyal customers even though they're sort of interchangeable sometimes? While maybe they differentiate in their branding, maybe they differentiate in their the way that you feel or the taste even. But like the reason I'm asking is because I want to know how successful protocols of Sonic are maintaining their moat and maintaining their differentiation from their competitors. So yeah, great insights there, thank you. And then Freud, how do you, I think your space is a little bit, if I'm not mistaken, it's a little bit less crowded, but you still have to obviously stick out from new entrants and all this kind of thing. So how do you do that? But I also think you're doing something a little bit more unique, but you can maybe speak to
I think mainly our USB is our network. Like, each one of our co-founders has spent 15, 20 years in the creative industries across film, art, all the different verticals, right? So we have a large network, and these people, all these industries are really, really like both concerned now that we have AI, on our doorstep. It's become more and more important to explore things like verification mechanisms and Merkle trees and like verification layers for their IP, right? It's really important for these sectors at the moment. Alex, our CEO, represented us at a big film conference yesterday. So it's being met with a lot of demand, and we've fortunately spent a lot of time in that actual industry. So I think the difference is we from our inception on blockchain and back in Phantom in 2020, 2021, we've learned a lot in this space, and we're pretty much bringing a lot of that knowledge, as well as like we built with Dimitri de Jong from Ocean Protocol, based in Portugal, and some of the leading AI engineers in the world, like Gene Kogan, for example. So essentially it's just like people from the entertainment industry teaming up with people from the machine learning and AI industry. We're coming together and like building what is taste, and we're trying to really think first about what the industry needs versus what's being provided from the AI side, and basically trying to fight the whole centralized AI thing, which is just kind of gimmicky fucking tools at the moment. Like we're trying to bring some more value to what does AI tools look like in the hands of like really creative people, and how do we change their audience to create a dynamic by content is changing, man, and like the way that people interact with content is changing, and we think AI can really empower the way that people extract assets and create assets with IP rather than just being serviced assets from IP. Like that's changing. And but integrating AI blockchain is essential. It's absolutely essential. Like AI and blockchain it's a perfect marriage.
So I think backstage we were talking a little bit about this, because I think Freud and his team have been the most from the perspective of or from the vantage point of a creative house. I've never seen any others embrace AI the way Freud and his team have. So if you could speak a little bit about what you guys are doing with AI and and how it's helping you, and then I'll ask you about the intersection later.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all finely tuned AI, right? So we work with low-rank adaptation models. So essentially, we sit down with IP, we figure out what assets, because the intellectual property can be a bit of a legal nightmare sometimes. We discern essentially what assets they have, and then we train models based on a fairly low subset of data. Like, for example, with Abyss cards are generated there's 40,000 cards that we created on chain with our users, and every single one of those cards is completely unique. The way we achieve that is with literally like 8 to 9 different pieces of artwork that I created on chain, about 3 or 4 years ago. So it gives a real testament to like what happens when you take a low subset of visual data. This is just visual, and then finely tune that, right? So we, like I said, with our team, like the expertise we have is we're not just coming from like a prompting or a coding background. We're coming from actual artists with creative vision and creative direction. You combine these two things, and all of a sudden you take machine learning models, and you're getting really, really high level output, right? We use zero knowledge proof essentially to like encapsulate all the training data, all the prompting data, everything, and we cache it on chain. So there's a standard called ERC 7007, which is essentially a contract that can be attached to a model, and then anything that model produces has a contract that forks back to that original contract. So it's about working with intellectual property, fine-tuning these AI solutions, and then when they're ready to deploy and start monetizing these things, that's when we bring it on chain, right? So any version of it that gets monetized, it's a ledger for a B2B offering, right? Again, like I was saying before, users don't really concern themselves about this. They don't really care whether a model's verified or not. It's very primarily a B2B offering. But yeah, that's essentially what we do. It's just all fine-tuning AI. It's like about sitting down and actually having creative direction.
It's amazing. And then also, could you also talk a little bit about the experience part of what you design? So you said that the way people experience things is changing, and you guys are doing really interesting stuff with VR and stuff. So could you talk about
Yeah, I mean, it's just all about autonomy, right? Like, give users choice. Like I said before, like, in the NFT game, we all remember, like, a team would prepare a collection, and then you basically just click mint, and you get what you're given. With Abyss cards, it was an interactive experience, right? So you would log in every day, and you get a new scenario, and that scenario would have 3 choices. And all that scenario and all of those choices are completely unique based on our LLM to each user. So no user's having the same experience. We had 7,000 users throughout the process of Abyss. Every single one of them had a unique experience. And was able to make their own unique choices. So what I mean by interactivity, in some ways, is a bit of an illusion, and that's going to grow over time. You're going to be able to give, because with creative direction, you can't give users all control. It's about like just creating an interactive space where they have an element of control. And that's exactly what Abyss was. We wanted to prove this model of if you implement an element of interactivity with assets and digital assets, it's what the user is demanding. It's how the user is changing, right? So they made a choice on chain, and everything they chose on chain was baked into a card that's generated through a flow through that on-chain request. So they purchase their card, and then rather than it being predetermined, that card's literally baked, created with all of their data on chain, and then is handed back to them. So
interesting.
Yeah.
I'm noticing trends of personalization when it comes to cutting-edge tech like AI, etc. Because in the past, you would not have if you look at something like this is like a Rolls-Royce bespoke program. The reason it's so expensive is not necessarily because of all the materials and all that other stuff. It's because you have to pay for all the individualized consideration, labor, time, etc. that it takes.
Yeah.
When you have AI able to read your preferences and sort of digest a lot of the information about you on a personal level while cutting out that labor cost, you can have personalized systems that are designed for you at a very low cost relatively. So personalized medicine is another thing that's on the horizon. So
Yeah,
it's really, you have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, that's exactly it. Like, yeah, for the Rolls Royce, you pay for the choice, right? Like, I want this, I want that, I want a certain interior. Like, that's kind of the psychology that we're tapping into here.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like when you give users choice, you're changing the dynamic between. I mean, that's the thing. Like, you have an audience member and you have a performer or an artist or whatever. For so long, it's just been like, I give you this, you take that. Like, I think AI can really facilitate a virtuous relationship, between audiences and creators essentially. And
yeah,
that's really the future, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that like attachment and as you mentioned, the psychological piece, like that changes very much when you have a personal connection to your asset or your artwork, etc. So that's super interesting. I think what I wanted to ask as well is when what do you see in terms of filmmaking specifically? Just a curiosity question before I move on to some other questions. But what's the future of filmmaking generally in with AI coming and these other tech?
I mean, we're working with like a Hollywood film called Freak Brothers, starring Woody Harrelson and Schoolboy Q and Pete Davidson. Like that's basically they're in the third season of an animation. It's a stoner animation. They love smoking pot. So like, essentially, we're looking at a solution of how do you like market a film, but also generate revenue from marketing that film. So you gain further exposure through interactive kind of experiences, which obviously give exposure to the brand and the upcoming season or whatever the film might be. But you're also able to actually monetize and generate revenue, right? Previously, marketing spends on films is astronomical. Like, you get a production budget, and then in some cases, you're close to, half, if not double, the actual production budget of a film just to market it. So, like, the idea of creating an interactive marketing campaign for films is massive because they can basically, the box office is becoming less and less of a revenue generator. So interactive marketing campaigns are a way that films are basically being able to tap into new levels of revenue and monetization whilst also marketing their film, right? So this is one of the main areas, but then there's also funding areas, right? So like the cool thing about AI is you can activate different parts of the artistic process. We're so used to artists serving us the final product, but with AI you can intuitively create ways to interact with the drafts or the storyboards, for example. Like, you take different parts of production of a film and you can monetize it and pretty much open up new funding opportunities, especially for independent film, right? So there's many areas. Many areas.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sort of an RWA type of deal with art. That's and creativity.
And the IP as well, tokenizing the IP in general, right? Yeah.
Nice. That's super cool. Okay, I wanted to ask just a couple more questions to Ali and Adam. Starting with Ali, what is your solving for the best route, etc.? Does it differ from chain to chain? So, for example, on Sonic, would you do something differently than what you would do elsewhere?
Core aggregation algorithm kind of remains the same, but you do have to account for different things. So in case of Sonic, given the speed, our infrastructure sort of scales in a different way because there's so many changes in liquidity states at any given second. So you kind of have to optimize for that, which means that the algorithm is kind of auto-optimizes for the chain that you're on and how frequently the data is updated. But yeah, there are some minor differences. And then one of the key differences is really the liquidity sources that we end up supporting because there's a lot of clubs that are pretty fast on Sonic.
I see, yeah. Okay, interesting. That's interesting. And then anything you're doing differently on Sonic other than other chains? One other chain you're launched on.
Not really, to be honest with you. What Sonic is just more assets. I feel like you have a lot more protocols coming in. Sonic is attracting a lot more builders. And what is actually happening differently on Sonic is we can integrate with other teams pretty quickly and get their native assets or their stablecoin onto our platform fairly quicker than any other chain because you guys the Sonic team itself, you guys have made integration and collaboration so easy. And
so it's a bit hands-on with respect to
assets.
Okay, that's cool. So great services our builders are providing on our chain, and Freud obviously provides great assets to us as well as our builders, and amazing work, creative work coming out of their studio as well. So thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next time.